brown prison uniform.
Maxwell looked completely different than the pictures we're used to seeing of her on socialite pages. She had much longer hair. It was darker.
Remember.
Done.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our meeting. The first order of business for our meeting is to approve the minutes from the June 23rd, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Paul motions. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Lynn seconds. Is there discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving? Okay, that's 4. So there won't be any opposed or abstaining. Okay, next order of business is to approve the agenda for tonight's board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Lynn motions. Is there a second? Paul
Second.
seconds. Okay, is there a discussion about tonight's agenda? Okay, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's 4-0-0. All right, we will move right into resident remarks. But before we get to any other residents who would like to make remarks, I would like to introduce to everyone Ashley Austin. Ashley has joined Councilmember Opal Jones's staff, and she's going to be handling constituent concerns and communications for District 2. All of Oakland Mills is in District 2. So welcome. And I guess you've been here, well, this was only your second full day. So I know you wanted to spend a couple of minutes introducing yourselves to us. So please take it away.
Yeah, sure thing. So again, I'm Ashley. I am originally from North Carolina, born and raised there. I recently relocated, so I live in Elkridge now, which is really nice. We've got family and everything up here, so it was nice to have a change of scenery. And even though I'm from the South, I am enjoying the cooler evenings up here compared to what we have back home. So that's actually really nice too. I went to East Carolina, have a background in communication, but for me, my passion is community engagement. So a lot of what I did back home was coordinating, kind of trying to find funds and, doing all of that for the community. We held backpack drives. We actually had a program down there called Medicist, which was something that I was really passionate about, where we provided over-the-counter medicine to anyone in the county. You didn't have to show proof of insurance or anything of that nature. Anyone in the household could show up, you fill out a form, and we provide you 8 to 10 medications, no cost to you. And we, as the organization, took care of the overhead and then coordinated it for, normally we had about 1,000 resident turnout for those events. So that was one that was really nice, and also trying to think of ways to incorporate things of that nature up here. I have a background in event planning, fundraising, so all of that. Some little just things about me. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. That's one of my things. I have a small dog. Her name is Bridget. She's a Shih Tzu Poodle mix. So I will probably be out and about with my mask on. So if you see me behind the mask with the little eyes, feel free to give me a wave, and we'll social distance and, kind of chat from afar. But if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. I am here as a resource.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, welcome aboard, Ashley, and we'll get you off to a good start tonight.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay, do we have any residents present who would like to participate and speak out? If so, please raise your hand or raise the blue hand on Zoom if you're not on camera. Okay, I see Jessica with her hand raised, so we will unmute you, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to know if the board could address the brutality that occurred at the LA Mart earlier in quarantine. I don't know if it was investigated by anyone here or spoken about to the community, but I know that there was a lot of discussion around the assault that occurred between the security guard and a customer back in, I want to say, April.
I can say that I am aware of it, but none of the parties involved have shared any details of it directly with the board, and I know it's a legal issue now, so that, you know, the board has not been involved in that.
Okay. Does that mean that it wasn't a permitted action? Like, is the security guard that works at the LA Mart employed privately by the LA Mart? And do the security guards that are employed have the authority to tase and beat customers?
The security guard at LA Mart is employed by LA Mart. The security guards in the rest of the village center are employed by Cedar.
Okay.
And you know, the OMCA, the only property that OMCA manages at the village center is the other barn. So, you know, the private security does not cover that part of the village center. And then of course CA owns the youth and teen center. So, you know, what the arrangement is between the private owners and their security is not, the board isn't privy to their arrangements or whatever contracts they have.
Okay. All right. You guys are just you're our community voice. So I would hope that you could reach out on behalf of us.
Well, we did.
Yeah.
Jonathan did when it happened, and we can provide the information that the police give us, that, you know, we're not the police. We were informed, and there was a conversation, right, Jonathan?
Okay, but there wasn't a result of it happening. There's security guards, as far as we know, are still armed, and there's no statement that says that they won't do it again.
We don't, I mean, we as a board were never given enough information about exactly what happened. The police confirmed there was an incident at LA Mart, and that's all they would share.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, does any other residents have a speak out item? Okay, then we will move into new business. So first in new business was Ginny had asked for a discussion of the Columbia Association legal action regarding Symphony Woods. So Ginny, I'll hand it over to you for 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. As you know, this is a legal action, so I'm going to read some points that are the results of our board and staff working together and have been approved by our lawyer. So I apologize for reading, but you know how it is with a lawsuit, or some of you may know how it is with a lawsuit. You've got to be careful what you say. So this lawsuit, and please just, you know, if you want to interrupt at any point and ask any questions, please do. The lawsuit is not an attempt to stop the Symphony of Lights altogether. CA recognizes that the Symphony of Lights is a beloved community tradition, but if it is to be held in Symphony Woods, it can no longer be a driving event. This suit is about protecting CA property, which is your property, honoring a written agreement, and ensuring that all entities that access Symphony Woods respect the park's land and plant life. On behalf of our residents and the town center neighborhood, we intend to see this effort through to its conclusion. Now, there were a couple of questions that people had on Next Door Neighbor or sent the CA board some questions. There's just about 3 of them. I'm just going to read the questions, and you may have more, but I'll just read our answers to those 3 at least, okay? What is the purpose of the lawsuit? Columbia Association, CA, the owner of Symphony Woods, and the Inner Arbor Trust, IAT, the nonprofit developer and operator of an arts and entertainment park in Symphony Woods that includes the Chrysalis, and many of you may have heard about the Chrysalis or have attended some phenomenal events there, have brought suit against the Downtown Columbia Arts and Cultural Commission, which is also known as the DAC. the owner of Meriwether Post Pavilion property, which is landlocked by the woods and IMT, the for-profit operator of MAT. CA and IAT are seeking a declaration by the courts regarding the rights and obligations of the four parties, excuse me, under various easement agreements and an injunction preventing IMA and DAC from continuing to exceed their rights under those easements and to trespass on and misuse CA property. Second question we were getting is, why is CA refusing to continue to grant a license to Howard County Hospital to hold the longstanding Symphony of Lights event, a charitable event that benefits the hospital? The hospital is not requesting a license to hold the Symphony of Lights, in fact, and SOL is not being operated as a charitable event and wasn't operated by that last year either. In 2017, CA expressed its concerns to the hospital about continuing to hold SOL as a drive-through event, given the environmental damage that the traffic causes to the woods. The hospital agreed that in 2018 would be the last year, and they signed a document to this effect, in which it would hold a drive-through SOL event. CA informed the hospital that CA would grant the hospital a license to continue to hold SOL as a walking event, but the hospital chose not to pursue that alternative. SOL is no longer sponsored or operated by the hospital and is not a charitable event to benefit the hospital, despite what you've been hearing. Instead, in 2019, SOL was sponsored and operated by IMA without a license agreement or other permission from CA as for a profit event to produce revenues for IMA. So, sorry about that. Why has CA brought this lawsuit now? There are a number of reasons. SOL was traditionally, apologize, I'll get the phones out of here. Okay. SOL was SOL traditionally, or Symphony of Lights traditionally, was routed through the parking fields. Many of you may remember that, which was behind Meriwether Post Pavilion, and the land is owned by Howard Hughes. Previously, that land was owned by Rouse Company and, some of you know, Howard Research and Development. So they allowed them to go on the Meriwether Post Pavilion land, obviously, but they allowed them to go on the Rouse land. Howard Hughes, as soon as they started building, decided no, they weren't going to allow that when they started developing the Crescent area. They were either unable to allow it or unwilling to make the property behind MPP available for SOL. We don't know what was the reasoning behind Howard Hughes, but that was the problem. The land was no longer available. It was contemplated that the event would be moved so that the route would be entirely on MPP property. Apparently, this proved unworkable for IMA, the profit organization, so it decided, without consulting with CA, to route the traffic through and place light installments on CA, your property. In prior years, a license agreement was in place with respect to SOL that respected CA's property rights, made every effort to protect the woods, and required the SOL operator to bear the costs of restoring the woods to the extent that SOL caused any damage. In 2019, IMA refused to enter into such an agreement with CA and failed to constrain the event to the MPP, Meriwether Post Pavilion property, owned by the DAC and operated by IMA. Instead, the event exceeded the uses allowed by the easement agreement between the DAC and CA and extended onto CA property outside of the existing easements. IMA, for all intents and purposes, conducted the SOL as if it, rather than CA, was the owner of Symphony Woods. Or you, it's your property, keep that in mind. Given these events and the likelihood that IMA would continue to act in this same manner in holding an SOL event in 2020, CA attempted to pursue discussions with IMA, the Inner Arbor Trust, the DAC, from January into April of this year in an effort to resolve these issues. Unfortunately, IMA refused to participate in that effort or negotiate a resolution, leaving CA and the trust with no recourse but to file a lawsuit. Last question is, would CA permit some form of SOL event to continue to take place in the woods? It is not CA's intention to foreclose the possibility of continuing the SOL event in some form. However, CA has an obligation to you and to future generations to preserve the woods environment, especially since it is rapidly becoming the only oasis of green space in the downtown area. To me, it's a little like being a New Yorker, it's a little like Central Park. Not as big, I grant you, but that's sort of my concept of what Symphony Woods is and the potential for it. If an SOL type event is to be held in the future that might require the use of CA property, it would have to be a walk-through event rather than a parade of slow-moving and idling vehicles negatively impacting the Symphony Woods environment to the detriment of the neighborhood and the entire community. The event would also require a license agreement with CA in which the operator of the event would be required to remain within the limits of the easement agreement currently in place and to repair any damage done to Symphony Woods so that CA funds your money would not have to be spent for such work, which has been happening in the past. We've been doing a lot of work, and one of our residents, Alice Ikimian, deserves a lot of credit for really meeting with myself and several other board members and CA staff almost 2 years ago to start to complain about what was happening down there and why were we spending money repairing the damage done by another organization. And he was pretty upset about it. And we've gotten all the repairs in. It really looks nice now. But this is what the whole thing's about. So thank you very much for giving me the time. I appreciate it. And I guess my bottom line is I would really appreciate if the Oakland Mills Village Board and Jonathan as the chair attends the meetings with the other chairs in the villages, if there's any chance that they could consider taking this issue seriously and supporting what CA and the Inner Harbor Trust are trying to do. So thank you. Yeah.
Jenny, how do we support that? Or, I mean, where do you want our voice heard?
As soon as possible, a resolution from the board, a letter from the board, a public letter would be phenomenal to the flyer, next door neighbor, other places to show your concern as well. A letter to the county council, because the politicians have been involved in this over the last couple of years. A letter to the county council, a letter to the hospital, and a letter to our state delegation because they have also been involved in this whole issue. So that would be wonderful. And you can word it however you want. I will share this with you, but you can, however you feel about the issue.
So Jenny, just a question. Now that this has become a matter for the courts, what would those, I guess, what would those communications accomplish, or is there still an effort to avoid going through with the lawsuit?
What it would accomplish is taking some of the pressure from certain people in the community, putting, especially elected officials have put pressure on CA before about this issue. Let them do it, let them do it. It would really help if elected officials saw that you were, Oakland Mills Village Board and residents were concerned about damage to the land. It is your property, and CA having to spend money. But, you know, if you were concerned too, that would have a lot of influence in terms of CA's board and staff not getting pressure to drop the lawsuit, because we're getting, there is a lot of pressure to just drop it. And you know, you see some of the articles in the paper, why are you doing this? Why are you, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment because I did not know the facts of what was going on. There's a lot of nuances here that I think a lot of people just don't understand. It's come down to, well, CA is allowing, you know, Festival of Lights to go forward. You know, can't they work with the other folks? I mean, that's kind of what people are telling me. I had no idea of what was going on with basically people ignoring what CA was trying to do environmentally, that they wanted to make sure that whoever was responsible for doing it, you know, cleaned up their mess if there was a mess. And it really bothers me that the people that are responsible for it have been reluctant or decided not to even come to the table to discuss this. So, you know, I'm in favor of putting in a, you know, letter of support for the approach that CA is taking. I think that it's warranted under the circumstances because, you know, CA is a big target, and unless you know the facts, you know, they're going to get beat about the head and shoulders, in my opinion.
Jonathan, may I comment on Paul's question?
Sure, and then Lynn has a hand raised.
Okay. Paul, this, I can't go into all the other examples. This lawsuit is limited to SOL. And keep in mind what I said before. This was not a problem when they stayed on Meriwether Post property and Rouse property. It was when Howard Hughes decided to build on their property, develop it, that they had to look elsewhere, and they decided, well, we're next door neighbors. Why can't we come over there, you know? There have been other instances where the land has been damaged, et cetera. And I'm not going to get into that because that is not written up here. But believe me, this is not the only instance. So this is a pattern of behavior. Sorry, Lynn.
Okay, I just wanted, Ginny, can you give us a sense of what the relationship is or isn't between the Symphony of Lights and the Fire and Ice event that was held last year?
They're two separate events. If you want, at some point, Lynn Egan, who's on the Inner Arbor Trust, and Janet Evans, but Lynn said she would be happy to come to a board meeting and explain their programming. But the Fire and Lights, I think the Girls on the Run were one of the groups that got some of the money from that event. It is Inner Arbor Trust event. They do a lot of events. They were at a severe disadvantage because of Symphony of Lights. Their people had to park across the Little Patuxent and come over. But I'm not going to get into all that. I'd be happy to have Lynn come because she actually sits on that board if you want.
Okay, but that's not a CA event.
No, it's, you know, and it was not drive through. It was a
right. No, I know that it was walking.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Ginny, I have one last question. You had referenced that, you know, some elected officials have in the past, and I guess currently, you know, put pressure on CA to kind of look past this and let it happen. Have they, I guess, have they offered any support, you know, from their level to assist CA in remediating the damage or basically finding an alternative, or are they pretty much just saying, let it be as it is? In other words, if we do decide to send something to elected officials, should we be, you know, offering or suggesting ways they can help rather than just saying, get off CA's back?
Oh, well, yeah, but you're gonna be more tactful than that, I know. Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, okay. I'd rather not get into all the gory details about what's been happening for the last year and a half online, okay? But one of the things you might want to consider, I was wondering about this, is what if county land, is there county land available where this event could take place? They could explore that. I don't know about any state park in Howard County. The state delegation could look at that. Are there other options? Why doesn't Howard Hughes want it on their land, to continue on their land? Well, I think we all probably know the answer to that. But is there a way, maybe you close Hickory Ridge Road, this is really way out, and have it go that way, which is the way it used to go, rather than on CA property. It went Meriwether Post down towards what is now Hickory Ridge Road, leading into the Howard Hughes property, the Crescent. So yeah, you could say, you know, hey, do you guys have any idea? This has been going on there for a long time. It's not a hospital event. It is not a charitable event for the hospital. It is a profit being done by a profit group, IMA, that I believe is the contractor for the DAC, which runs the Meriwether Post Pavilion. So it's a profit group. But, you know, if the county wants to deal with them and come up with another location, go for it. I mean, that could be another suggestion. Why is it always Columbia Association has to do it? This is a countywide event. In fact, this is a regional event, I
Okay,
think.
thanks, Ginny. Were there any other questions for Ginny? Okay, and Ginny, did you say you could send us, I know you can't send everything because some of it might be part of the lawsuit, but you could send us some of the information you shared tonight?
Actually, I will send you what I read tonight. Yeah, and if you
Okay.
want to read the legal, the lawsuit, just it's online. I mean, you can go get it. It's public.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you want the same thing in the minutes, but if you want any of that in the minutes, can you send it to me too?
Yes, yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, guys, for listening.
Ginny, there was one thing you mentioned I didn't address. We don't have another board chairs meeting scheduled at this point, but I'll reach out and see when there's availability and interest in having another one, and I can certainly make this one of the topics. They kind of tend not to happen unless I reach out and say, hey, we should meet. So I'll reach out and say, hey, we should meet soon.
Well, actually, Jonathan, one of the things I've noticed about Oakland Mills, Bill and I used to do this too, and you do it, is when Oakland Mills takes a leadership position, we just send them to the chairs of the board and ask them to share it with their boards, and that's sometimes enough.
Mm-hmm.
I did stand up at that meeting we had with the CA board, the village chairs, and the village managers, and asked that the boards consider taking a position on this and supporting CA and the residents. So I did that, what was that, last week?
That was last Wednesday.
Time flies, yeah. When we're at the Crystallis for the meeting, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that they would, you know, we could take the lead and just send them a copy. Whatever they do with it, they do with it. It's up to the CA reps, and I've talked to the CA reps to get their boards to try and support this, really.
All right, thank you, Ginny.
No, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for asking questions.
Okay, our other new business topic was, I guess, Sandy, did Kristen put out this call, and then I know it also appeared in some other notes that have gone out there. The village board should have a representative to the Howard County General Plan and Zoning meetings that will be starting. So we have that on new business tonight, so that we can, consider if and potentially who we want to nominate to that, and then we can bring that back as old business in a couple of weeks after perhaps others hear about it and throw their names in the hat or not, so that we can make a final decision on who that person is if we're putting someone up for this position.
Let me speak to this and give you a little bit of background. The way it's presented in the agenda is not quite accurate, but it deals with the same issue. I've been told by Amy Gowan, who's the DPC director, that I will be one of the people that are appointed by the county executive to the update on the general plan. And they haven't yet done that. This particular update was put before the council, and they voted on it. And what they said was, we want to approve anybody who is appointed by the county executive for this public advisory committee. So with that change to the legislation, that will not be voted on until sometime in September. Now, CA has taken the opportunity basically to decide on what their position is going to be for Newtown zoning, which is part of this update. And I came across this in Nancy McCord's notes, which she does, and I get a copy of, that CA was going to be looking for volunteers from all the boards to basically get together and decide on what CA's position should be as part of this public advisory committee. So that's why I'm saying this is not quite accurate, because this is more dealing with CA wanting to get representation from all the village boards. And so I wanted to get this on the agenda because I was already anticipating doing this as part of something I was already told about, had already accepted. And this is a logical outgrowth because I've been very interested in Newtown zoning. I was part of the HCCA group that did the movie on the Newtown and where do we go here. So that's why this is brought up. CA is looking for a representative from Oakland Mills to be on this committee that they put forward. Their first meeting is going to be July the 30th. And it's supposed to go through August and I believe early September. So, as I said, the way this is on the agenda is not quite accurate, but it's in the ballpark.
Jonathan?
Yes, Ginny.
Yeah, okay. Let me see if I can clarify this. We were told at last Thursday's meeting, we were just presented with this calendar, and actually it ends December 3rd, Paul. It's 4 sessions, but we were told by Kristen Russell, the Director of Office of Planning and Community Affairs for CA, and I may have misunderstood her, that she had contacted the villages, either the village managers. Sandy, did she get a hold of you?
Yeah, I sent it to Jonathan. It was like last week because it was something that the board, it was for him.
Yeah, it would have been asking the village board.
I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah, okay, told us that she had asked the village managers to give this to the board and asked the board to have a representative, one representative on this with the 10 CA reps, the staff, and one representative from each village board. So that's what it's really about, and I guess you didn't all see that. But you were notified by Kristen to ask that this be done. So that's what Paul's referring to. It would be starting, unfortunately, and as I said, we just learned about the dates. July 30th is the first workshop. Second one is August 18th. The third is September 3rd and September 22nd, October 15th. November 5th and December 3rd will be the conclusion. The whole concept here, very briefly, is instead of CA reacting all the time to what the county does in terms of, especially in terms of Newtown, whatever plans they may have, we would come up perhaps with some general principles or some ideas and be more proactive. And I've really been pushing that. I'm tired of reacting all the time. So that's the goal, is to be more proactive. And we just want to have a village board member from each village, which is 10 total, if that clears it up any. So I guess the board didn't, I don't know, you don't know, or you didn't know?
I had
Oh,
sent it to Jonathan,
I
and
got
it's
the
on the
message.
agenda.
I got the message from Sandy and from Paul almost simultaneously last week. So
Got
that's
it,
why we
got it.
did the late
Okay.
addition to new business. We'd already put our agenda out when these communications came into us. So Sandy forwarded me the message. At the same time, Paul had called and left me a voicemail. So I said, all right, we'll put it on as new business late.
Okay, I just want to make sure Kristen did get a hold of you guys. Okay, thank you. So that's what it's about. And unfortunately, the first meeting is July 30th. The next is August 18th. So hopefully, I know how you can do that, but hopefully you get somebody on it quickly. It has to be a board member, so.
Paul?
Yeah, so I'm interested in being appointed. I don't know if there's anybody else on this board that's interested. It kind of aligns with what I'm going to be doing anyway, because one of the things I'll be, making sure of that, the Newtown way of doing things is respected. And so, I'm willing to take the time and get involved with these meetings that CA is going to do, in addition to what I'm going to probably be doing soon for Howard County. So that's kind of my position on this.
Okay, is there any other discussion or question? All right, so we have stated interest from Paul. Thank you, Paul. Sandy, so if the first meeting is the 30th, then, I mean, theoretically, we can bring this back as old business and there would still be time before the first meeting. But was there a deadline by which we needed to submit a name that it comes sooner than that?
No, and I'm
Okay.
trying to find the email. I mean,
No. I mean, you might want to send a note to Kristen saying, we discussed it today and we will be voting on this on the 28th, or however you want to handle it. And that person will be attending on the 30th, because you all know the meeting's on the 30th. We just got to make sure well, obviously it's going to be not in person, unless we try for the Chrysalis again for some.
that wasn't good.
Oh, I liked it. I like finally being with people in person.
Oh yeah, that part, but for the people that were on Zoom, like if it's a committee member, it was tough.
No, actually, you're right. And we did a critique of it, and clearly they need another mic. the people that were on
Yeah,
Zoom-
I mean, there's, you can ask the people online. I could send you some good suggestions to make it work.
Yeah, please do, because we already came up with a few that said, this has got to change if it's done again.
Okay.
Now, we
Or you
didn't
need
do it.
Jonathan at all your meetings.
We didn't do it. Nina did it, and
Yeah, no, I'll send you that.
but if it were there again, it's a beautiful atmosphere and everything. But if it were there again, clearly a second mic, because you guys really kept saying, I can't hear, and that's wrong. But there was a good group there, and they kept the social distancing, and it was nice to be able to meet people, talk to them. It was good. I liked it.
Okay.
But then I was easy to please, so. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't oppressively hot either.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, well, you kept moving because the sun kept, no, I'm kidding, following you.
All right.
Okay. We'll bring it back.
So Sandy, just, make a note to bring that back.
And I'll
as
let
old business
Kristen
in 2
know.
weeks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to old business. So the first thing we have in old business is a continuation or the revisit of something we discussed at our last meeting. And that was the request from Howard County to update our short-term, midterm, and long-term Oakland Mills priorities for the county. So Sandy circulated a document that included the board input from the minute. From the meeting, and hopefully everyone has had a chance to look this over. But to summarize, I'm not going to go into the details. In the short term, we had the coordination on redevelopment of Verona, including community involvement of the Verona residents, as well as the Oakland Mills Board and the Oakland Mills community. The signage at Blandair Park, the county maintenance of HOA roadways, including those privately owned, the retention of employees impacted by COVID-19 and communication of resources and employment opportunities, public nuisance legislation. Midterm was county partner with Columbia Association to expand the ice rink, complete the streetscape around the village center, review property maintenance policies for county-owned property in Columbia, and the housing database and map. And then long-term was the transit way, the capital investment in deteriorating school buildings. So everyone's had about 3 weeks to kind of think about what we discussed last time. Take a look at what Sandy circulated after she put our input into a better looking document than what I sent to her, because I just had like chicken scratch notes. Were there any other items that anyone has thought about over that time period, or any items on here causing anyone concerns that we need to discuss?
I have an item that I just thought of the other day, actually, that would be good to add. I don't know if it's short term or midterm, but part of what Warren's here, part of what the Public Space Committee has been trying to do recently was map all where we need curb cuts throughout Oakland Mills to make the bike paths more accessible for both handicap accessibility and bikes. Most of the ends of the bike paths drop, have a curb at the end, and there's curb cuts missing. So they've been creating a database of where we need curb cuts, and everybody has been unsuccessfully reaching out to public figures to try to get it to happen, and it's not happening. So it would be really nice to get it on this list. Right? I don't know if you can unmute Warren if he has any more to say about that. Warren, do you want to shake your head? Do you have more? Oh, there you go. Here.
No, that would be great. We've contacted the highways, Howard County Highway people, and I don't know if we've reached out to Opal Jones yet.
I did.
Okay, so we really haven't heard anything yet about that. So.
Well, I think so. So are you saying that the database still needs to be built, or someone's maintaining one and we now need the county to act on it?
Well, yes, we need the county to act on it.
Right.
We have a pretty good starter list.
Okay, so just send me the exact terms of what your ask is if we want to add this after the meeting or something.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to say, setting up the database infrastructure, that to me sounds like a short term. Actually executing and doing all the cuts is probably more medium term. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. I mean, we'd probably like to see it start in the short term, but it wouldn't be finished in the short term. If you look at the timelines the county lays out.
Yeah, curb cuts are actually really cheap and easy to do. So.
Oh, Michael Harris wants to talk too. I'm going to unmute him.
Oh, let's do that.
Nope.
Hey,
Wait a
Rebecca,
second.
I'm unfamiliar with this topic here. Could you please forward me this to my email address? As will Village Board Ashley Alston's email address is aalston@howardcountymd.gov. If you could CC that to Ashley and I, that'll be fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca, so much.
Thank you. So before we lose Mr. Harris, is an email all that's necessary, or does he think that it might need to be on this list?
I think we should, I mean, if we agree we want this, I think it's still something we should add to the list to have that on the record as well.
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
Agree, Jonathan. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So just send me what the wording is and I can add it if that's okay with everyone. I think I know it, but just to confirm.
Well, I think since it's old business, what we'll do at the end of the discussion is we'll just do a board vote on the list of items, and we'll include
Okay.
this, tentatively, and then we'll just have to review the language via email.
Okay.
As long as the majority of the board supports having this as an item, then I think that's enough to go with tonight.
Jonathan?
Yes, Ginny.
This is more of a concept. My frustration over the last couple of years with the CA budget is that CA keeps doing things that the county is doing elsewhere. And so we, as CA residents, are paying taxes to have that done, like the mowing of the median strips, for example, as CA lien payers as well. And I don't know how you would word this, but I'm going to be doing this in the CA budget to try and find more areas where CA can say, no, enough's enough. We're not going to do it anymore. It's up to you, county, to be doing things. But it would be really nice if the county looked at what's being done by CA that they are doing elsewhere, and maybe say, to be fair, to have equity here, they should be doing that for Columbia residents as well. The median strips is just one example. I'm sure there are many others.
The curb cuts are county.
No, I know that.
Oh.
No, curb cuts are clearly county. I'm talking about what are other things that they are offering to residents, programs, services outside of the county that you're paying for in your taxes, but you're also paying for in the CA budget. And with the CA budget having so many problems, it may be time for the county to start stepping up to the plate, if possible, and start doing those things. Another one is the overpass. Why are we in the overpass business at all? And it costs a lot to repair overpasses. But that clearly, if they're needed at all, it's a safety issue, and it should be the county. So, that's just a couple of examples. Mowing median strips, why are we spending extra money by CA to do it when the county should be doing it? And then if they don't do it right, you can complain to the county. Oh, never mind, that was a joke. Okay.
Well, I think there are also examples of even, I guess, what I would term social services. I know years ago when we asked the county and the school system why, they were offering certain after-school programs and activities at a lot of middle schools, but not at ours, the response was, well, you have the Youth and Teen Center. Well, that's CA. So, we're, okay, fine, we have the CA Youth and Teen Center, but you're still not providing, at our schools what you're providing at other schools because we have this thing. So what? What if we didn't have this thing? Then what would you do?
Exactly. That's another good example. And there are many if you really want to think about it, but it'd be nice if the county were to look at it at things that way and maybe partner with us more. The volunteer center that we have, I think it was a county grant, maybe it was a federal pass-through, but it stopped and CA picked up the total budget and it serves the county. So I had a problem with that too. So that's just some examples.
So would you like that as just maybe under short term is to look into these issues and give some suggestions, and if there's more that anyone can think of, we can put that together?
Sure. I mean, well, I'm just one person.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how to word it. I mean, generally, I think it's review, what is it? Review services and amenities provided by the county outside of Columbia that are instead provided by CA within Columbia, something like that.
Well, and it's also services provided by CA that really serve to meet the needs of everybody in the county, like the overpass, like the volunteer center, you know.
Right.
Mowing.
Well, and actually, I mean, as a good example, we already have the ice rink on there, and that's basically what we're saying. The ice rink serves everyone, so partner with CA to provide a better ice rink. So it's really an expansion on that.
Right. And they should be putting money into the second. They should pay for the second rink. Yeah, we could figure out how to manage it and all that. Yeah. Because I'll tell you, you talk to people that are there. They're from Ellicott City, most of them, or Western Howard County. Okay, I didn't want to beat this.
Okay, so that's something I can add and send around the language.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were there any other suggestions or comments? Lynn?
I just wanted to point out that we've had 3 weeks to look at the list that was presented at the last meeting, and that now we're substantially changing our list, and just pointing that out, that it's, so how are we going to handle these? I don't have any problems specifically with these 2 additions, but how are we going to handle making these additions just right here, right now?
Well, I mean, that's where I was saying earlier, if we're modifying the list tonight, at the end of this, I was going to call for a vote. And if anyone doesn't feel comfortable voting up the modified list, then we would vote it down and bring it back for more discussion until we arrive at a final list or decide that we're not going to produce a list.
Okay.
I think the biggest concern about adding new things is that the public doesn't have time to comment, but this priority list has been known. So if anybody had anything to comment on, they could have.
Yeah, but these are new things, was my point.
I have a question, and it may be, I don't know if it's what Jenny was talking about or if it's something else, but the county maintenance of all HOA roadways and driveways. I don't know why that is on there. Can somebody explain that issue to me?
Yeah, that's what Bill covered at the last meeting. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, Rebecca, the issue is that some townhome associations like Holly Court, the driveways in their property are owned by the HOA. And the HOA therefore has to pay for plowing snow, has to pay for maintaining the driveway and replacing it. Other townhome associations in Oak Mills like Tarleton, that roadway in their property is actually a public road owned by the county. And therefore the county pays for the snow removal and maintenance and replacement of that driveway. So it's an issue where Holly Court homeowners and Tarleton homeowners both pay taxes to the county, and the county uses that tax money to plow the public road in Tarleton, but doesn't use public money in Holly Court because the county doesn't own that driveway. So there's an inherent inequity to the homeowners in Tarleton and Holly Court. And it started because of zoning regulations in the county that allow a developer to make the choice whether to build the driveways up to county road standards and deed the property over to the county, or produce the driveways at lower than county road standards and keep the deed to that property as part of the common area that the HOA owns, and therefore the homeowner fee covers the cost of that driveway. So there's a basic inequity caused by the county.
Gotcha. So does that mean the parking lots at Holly Court, for example, are not up to the same standard as the parking lots that are being taken care of?
Yes, that and not so much the parking lot, but the roadway, once they leave the public road, like Basket Ring Road at Holly Court. Basket Ring is a county-owned road. Once you turn off Basket Ring into that Holly Court development, the roadway is the driveway, Holly Court owns that, and that roadway driveway takes them to their parking spaces in their development, and those parking spaces are also owned by the HOA, okay? Up at Tarleton, you turn off of Kilimanjaro Road, you're into a county road, Reeder Lane or Matador Court, and that's still a county road. And once they pull into their parking space, that parking space is HOA owned, but the driveway between Kilimanjaro and that parking space is a county owned road.
Gotcha.
Okay, is there anything else on the priorities list? Okay, is there anyone interested in making a motion to approve the list as submitted and then amended with the 2 items we discussed tonight?
I'll move that we approve the list with the addition of the curb cuts and the CA Howard County funding issue.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Paul seconds. Okay, further discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oppose? Abstain? And, okay, 1 abstention. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, I'm trying to find my agenda document. Okay, our other item of old business. At the last meeting, we discussed the possibility of nominating Warren Wortman to chair the Public Space Committee. Warren is here with us today. I'm assuming that means you accept that nomination. So we did bring it back as old business for the board to discuss and determine whether it wants to vote a new Public Space Advisory Committee chairperson. I would get it out eventually. All right, is there any further discussion on this? Is there anything you'd like to say, Warren?
No, I think we'll meet probably every other month and do what we've done last year. So hope we can continue to move forward on public space. Yes.
Right, Sandy? Sandy, was that your hand?
Yeah. Warren, can you make sure that you let me know in advance of the meetings, best 2 weeks, where they are, if they're on Zoom or whatever, because it's a public committee. So as all committees, we should know so that we can announce it if anyone's interested.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, I'll happily motion to nominate Warren Wortman as the new chair of the Public Space Advisory Committee. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I think Bill got in a split second ahead of Rebecca, so we'll say that Bill seconds. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all of us. All right. Congratulations and thank you, Warren.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Warren.
Okay, next up is the board chair report. So I extended this a little bit today. I don't know if I'll need the full 20 minutes, and I'm going to bring up some notes that I took. So as you heard earlier, we did have the village chairs and the village managers meet with the CA board at the Chrysalis and virtually last Wednesday evening. You know, I'd like to thank Ginny and Andy Stack and everyone who was involved in making sure that happened. I did send our board the PowerPoint presentation that Andy made actually that night as it was starting. I got online and sent that to all of you. So you were seeing it at about the same time I was. Hopefully you've had some time to go through that. I also took some notes because there were portions of the meeting not covered by the PowerPoint because CA staff also spoke, excuse me, after Andy, specifically about the facilities that are managed by the villages, as well as about the management contract. So, you know, I'll start by saying if there are any questions about anything in the PowerPoint, feel free to ask, and I'll refer back to the notes I took as Andy spoke through that to see if, you know, I have the answer from what he spoke, because obviously he spoke beyond just reading the bullets on the PowerPoint. But the PowerPoint did do a good job summarizing what Andy had to say to open the meeting and walk through the challenges that CA is facing with the budget. The thing I really wanted to focus on, oh, well, actually there was one unknown during Andy's talk. I actually raised a question that it looks like I think has been resolved. There was that question about whether the school system, if there is in-person school, was going to allow CA before care and after care in their facilities. And before care and after care was, you know, mentioned in the potential plans for the school system reopening. Now they haven't voted in a full plan yet, so it remains to be seen what that will be. But it definitely was a consideration. It did look like it was a positive consideration in terms of having that. And you know, we should be paying attention Thursday because that's when the reopening plan part 2 is going to be discussed at the Board of Education.
Well, Jonathan?
Yes.
On that point, that could be a big blow to CA because, you know, we've talked about a lot of the revenue is coming from before and after school and from the clubs. And if we don't have the before and after school, that's a significant blow. So.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to facilities, you know, the big question was how do we reopen our buildings safely? And, you know, the response to Dennis was that UV disinfectant systems have proven effective in larger rooms, but each building is unique. So he referred all of us to a CA playbook that they published on their website and, you know, cautioned us that we can't COVID-proof buildings. Really, you know, when it comes to who's responsible for what in the buildings, you know, basically what Dennis was saying when it comes to HVAC, CA continues to be responsible for the basic maintenance of the HVAC, but above and beyond, for example, the, you know, $1,000+ filtration systems we might want to have installed, that will be the responsibility of the villages. You know, when it came to how unique our buildings are from each other, or just how generally unique they were, really, unfortunately, all Dennis could really say, I'm sorry, I'm toggling back to my notes to make sure I don't get this wrong, is that our village managers should get in touch with people who run similar buildings and see what they're doing, which now I'm going to add my commentary. I found that ironic because if you think about Oakland Mills' largest building, well, the other building that's like our building, which is a barn with small spaces on the bottom and large spaces on top, is right next door and it's run by CA. So I don't I don't know if that means we should take Dennis's advice and call him back and say, so what are you doing with the barn? We'll do the same thing at the other barn. But I mean, that was basically the suggestion. And I know Sandy will have more in her report, but you know, Sandy has already ordered a lot of supplies and protective and remediation materials for use in the other barn. And of course, now the question is, you know, well, when will we need them at the other barn or at the neighborhood centers? Because, you know, pretty much our renters have, you know, voluntarily canceled or postponed everything through October. So there's not even necessarily a rush to get anything going in there until we know more about what's needed, because there's not a demand for the facilities right now. People just aren't, you know, wisely aren't gathering in groups right now. So, you know, we do have the luxury of some time. What we don't have is the luxury of, you know, unlimited money to do this. So we'll also have to pay attention to that. The most interesting thing to me that came out of that meeting, and it was a surprise to me, and I haven't talked to all the chairs, but I know it was a surprise to several of the other chairs, was on the management contract. So as you'll recall, we did not sign the amended management contract. We sent a letter back to CA saying, hey, we'd like to talk about this. We think that we're basically, you know, we think we're okay with these changes, but we'd like to do this year by year. Because if you look at the amendments to the management contract, some of those changes were for the duration of the contract, which would take us through fiscal 24. And then one of the changes was 1 year only, and that was the lift of the excess cash reserves cap. So, you know, three villages have signed, 7 villages have not. Other villages have sent things back similar to what we sent, you know, from what I gathered from talking to the other chairs. And, you know, they were wondering why we hadn't gotten a reply. Well, what we learned Wednesday night was the amended management contract was a take it or leave it. So if that's how it stands, take it basically means we keep the $500 or so that we would have to give back as excess cash reserves this year to CA. And we would be accepting a $2,000 cap on facilities repairs before they become CA responsibility versus the current $1,000.
Backwards.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I just mixed the two. We would give back the $500, but we would keep the $1,000 facility maintenance cap before it becomes a CA responsibility. The take it would be we sign the contract, we keep our $500, but we accept a $2,000 per event maintenance cap on our 4 facilities, the other barn and the 3 neighborhood centers. So, you know, that was the news part. We didn't realize that there's no room for, or at least I didn't realize there's no room for negotiation, as did several other chairs and managers. It was a take it or leave it. So, you know, with that knowledge, one thing I asked Sandy to do was try to go back through the records on the other barn and the facilities and, you know, kind of work up a what if spreadsheet. So, you know, what if that $2,000 cap were in effect? You know, how much would that have hurt us versus giving $500 back? And Sandy put that together. Bill, she sent it to you and I today, and I know we probably haven't had a chance to look at it. But what I'm recommending to the board is that we bring the management contract back one more time as old business at the next meeting, because it would be old business since it's already been introduced and discussed once. And, you know, basically determine whether we want to take it or leave it, because those are our options. If we do nothing, we're leaving it. If we don't respond, then we didn't sign the new contract and we're still covered by the old contract, you know, for the remainder of the contract period, or I suppose until another amendment comes through with another take it or leave it message. And as I said, if we do decide that we're going to sign it, then we keep our excess cash over cap for this year, which is a little over $500. But we also assume the risk of you know, maintenance events at the other barn or the neighborhood centers, you know, costing us another $1,000 per event before CA comes in and takes over.
Questions?
Yeah,
Yes,
I've got a comment. I think it's pretty high-handed on the part of CA to basically give us a take it or leave it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that to me is unconscionable. I mean, basically, we act as their property managers for their building. They're not ours. And I mean, where I'm coming from, I don't want to sign it. And so the old management contract is in effect, so what? I mean, you know, there's too many downsides from what I see with signing this thing. My opinion.
As I said, I was surprised by that as well. And, you know, the reason I asked Sandy to put that together is because I like crunching all the numbers and being the analytic guy. But, you know, to me, yes, the cap waiver was for this year only. Right, and that was sort of one of our bones of contention. You know, the things that cost the villages more are for the remainder of the contract. The thing that lets the villages keep some money was only for 1 year. Why don't we have all this lined up on a year by year? So the cap relief was for this year only. For us, it would be a little over $500. Sandy has the exact figure, but you know, we have 4 older buildings. Things can go wrong, even if the buildings aren't being used as much as they were. Things can go wrong, and they can get expensive. And so to me, it is that cost benefit of, you know, do you give up $500 now to risk not giving up another $1,000 per event, or
Right.
do you roll the dice?
Yeah.
Jonathan?
Yes, Ginny.
Yeah, actually, I think some of us were a little surprised too. The way it was presented, some of us weren't too pleased about that's part of the session the other night. But one of the things I'm just thinking about in terms of the age of our buildings and also the CA budget, and that category that has the funding for this has been cut. I'm very concerned about how much money is really going to be available, period. It's really only to be used for safety, emergencies, et cetera. So I'm really worried about, will there be a point? I'm not saying this will happen. I'm just thinking ahead, depending on what happens with things staying open, closing, annual charge, the commercial, how much we get, et cetera. What might happen if there's not much money available to make repairs, quite frankly?
Mm-hmm. So
like 1,000, 2,000 almost does that matter anymore.
Yeah.
If my point is, it may be that it may be a long wait to get something done. I think the barn would be the top priority. It's the neighborhood centers that I'd be concerned about whether repairs, especially if they were very costly, whether they actually could be done. Nobody else has said that. Nobody at CA. It's the way you were discussing things. That was what I was just wondering about.
Yeah, and Ginny, first of all, I'm glad you said you and others were surprised too. I could sense that, but I didn't want to speak for you or other members of the CA board. But it was not. Well, let me just say, I agree that was not a good presentation, and I don't think the person making the presentation really had any sympathy toward what the villages are facing with the facilities at all. You kind of had to be there to see it. And maybe others would have different reactions, but that was my reaction to it. You know, in terms of the facilities, the way I'm looking at it, and look, we're taking a gamble no matter what we do here. But the way I'm looking at it in terms of the facilities is if we think use is going to be down substantially for a while, and even if we think, you know, once they are used, they're going to be used at lower capacity, then and Sandy can weigh in on this more than I can, but it feels to me like the maintenance we might need would fall more into those categories of kind of emergency and safety and less in that category of wear and tear.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm kind of more leaning toward us not taking that part of the risk. Now, ultimately, we don't know what CA is going to be able to do in the future. We don't know what we're going to be able to do in the future either. So yeah, we're rolling the dice here because we just don't know.
Let me give you an example of why I was kind of concerned listening to the presentation, and I have not had time to check the minutes of the CA board meeting. But I was under the impression, and some of my colleagues were, that to be very upfront and honest about it, when we voted, the vote was actually to change it from 1,000 to 2,000. And the compromise was to allow the villages to keep their reserve, you know, the extra money, which I guess is 500 for Oakland Mills. That was it, done deal. You know, it's not a matter of you had a choice of this contract or the other contract. I didn't realize.
Well, it's
it was
a
supposed
contract.
to have happened. What?
It's a contract that's co-signed. And really,
Yeah.
the 7 villages that didn't sign it, I mean, we'd already signed the management contract 4 years ago, but the villages that didn't sign it, it wasn't as much the money thing, it was to review the maintenance thing yearly because no one knows what the future will hold.
Right.
CA might want to change it to $4,000 next year. You don't know. So it wasn't, I think it would be mutually beneficial to want to talk about this every year for both CA and the villages. And if CA next year is even in a worse position, you know, why would you want to be stuck with the $2,000 cap for 4 more years? So, you know, everyone was supportive and understood the reason. It was really just the duration of that part of the change. And to blanketly say take it or leave it when what we were asking for could actually benefit either the villages or CA or, you know, working together. So I think that was the frustrating part, is that every village took a lot of time to discuss it, took a lot of time to write a really comprehensive letter to the CA board, and no one ever got a response from anyone until we heard what, you know, Kristen said. So, you know, if it was a meeting for communications and to work on it, that part of the meeting kind of just blew it, because it was not a take it or leave it issue. It's a, hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah,
So that's a key point.
No, I concede that, and that was another part of the meeting that we board had a discussion about. So I'm sorry that happened. But we're still at what, 3 villages have signed for the 2,000 and keep their reserves. Okay.
Yeah, as of Wednesday night, 7 had not signed, 3 have signed, and none of the village chairs who have not signed have given me any indication since the meeting that they're planning to sign.
Okay.
But you know, not all the village boards have met, and
Right.
I don't know how much they've communicated back to their boards yet.
Yeah, I think what Kristen was saying is we've got to end this, though. I don't know if she gave a deadline of the end of July or.
She asked us, and I told her that it would be at the end of July after this meeting, talking about it, bringing it back. And then other villages have said they're not even meeting again till August. And she just said, fine, thank you for letting me know.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions for me about that meeting before I move on to the last quick thing I have? All right. The only other thing I have is the director of the Mediation and Conflict Resolution Center reached out to me earlier today because she knew we had a board meeting, and just asked me to remind everyone that if you're interested in participating in the survey, if you haven't provided your email address to Sandy yet, please provide it. If you have provided it and you have the survey in your inbox, please remember to take it. All right. If there are no questions for me, I will turn it over to Ginny for the Columbia Council report.
Well, actually, I think I took enough time before. The main thing is the clubs are open, and I don't know how many of you have gone over there. I personally think that they're doing an excellent job in terms of greeting people, insisting that you wear a mask, giving you sanitizer, and telling you what you had to do, clean down your machines before you use it, after you use it. You know, I think the instructions are excellent. it seems to me like everything I see at both the athletic club and at the Supreme, they're doing a really good job. Now, maybe somebody else sees it differently. We're looking at the data. We'll be getting more pretty soon, but you know, you do have X number of cancellations, but you also have new members signed up. It's about a 33% of where you want to be, but that's nationwide. There's a real problem with people returning to clubs, indoor facilities. So we're no different than anybody else. But you know, so far it is bringing in money, and it's also providing jobs for people that were furloughed for a long time. So the staff is very happy to be back at work. And other staff don't feel so lonely in the headquarters. There are more of those coming back. So that's kind of nice to see people, or some people, employed anyway. Budget is still a problem. We still will owe about 17 million on the loan. And when the new money will be about 20 million, the first loan. We're hoping to get more, but that's going to pay off that. And also you've got open space is a killer. I mean, it's about 16 million now, it'll be 13 million. And actually, you guys, the village boards, it's about 4 million, or it was 6 million line item. You've been cut, but it's a lot of money too, and it's just, you know, it's going to eat in a lot to the annual charge money that comes back, and most of it will be almost used right away for other things. So we've got to stretch that annual charge, because we really don't know what money for sure at this point we're going to get from the clubs, which is our moneymaker. And our other moneymaker, as we talked about before, is before and after school programs, especially elementary school, how much we'll get, if we get anything there. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want
It
to
looks
make
like Paul has a question for you.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on what CA is doing. I think this is the opportune time for CA to get back to basics, to do what we used to call in the federal government zero-based budgeting. What is our real mission and goals in Columbia? I mean, I brought this up before. I mean, CA has gotten involved, and you recognize that. You've been doing stuff that the county should have been doing. I mean, it's about time that you basically take a long, hard look at all your activities and figure out, you know, should we even be doing them anymore? It's the opportune time to do it. And,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people would probably disagree with me. You know, we've got these great clubs. We've got, well, I'm sorry. Other clubs have been eating your lunch for years. Your memberships have stayed static for years. I mean, you're just barely holding your own. I mean, I just think it's time for you to basically really look at what you're doing. And, you know, as Bill has brought up, everybody should be a member in this HOA called Columbia Association. And we should be doing what basically the residents want, and that is the open space, the swimming pools, maybe a couple of the clubs, but then again, maybe not. I mean, you know, you're not going to get back to the revenues you had before. You really, really need to figure out what you want to be for the rest of the 50 years here. End of my comments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that is one of the things everybody's going to be looking at, and by everybody, the residents have to be involved in that, and what are the real core services that CA has to provide. It can be looked as a positive in terms of reinventing CA. The other thing is, Paul, you know, I agree with you in terms of you live within your budget. However, we were supposed to vote in July on the annual charge, the 3.5% and the 68 cents per $100. That was postponed. I objected to that at our meeting last Thursday. It was postponed till September. I said, why are we doing that? We need to tell staff exactly what the answer to those questions are in terms of how they can then use that information on anticipating revenue and prepare a budget, because we need that budget for the end of October so you all can review that and have comments. The rest of the board didn't agree with that. The staff really said, well, we want to really look at all the data coming in, all the revenue coming in. I said, what difference does it make in terms of, the issue is very simple. Do you want to raise taxes on the people in Columbia or don't you? And some people do. One of my colleagues from Wild Lake has been pushing 3 times last year and once or twice the previous year, and will continue to push. She was in Next Door Neighbor, encouraging people to say, yeah, we should be voting for an increase. And she's saying, and some people are thinking, well, if you do that, it'll go towards the swimming pools, the outdoor pools. I don't know how you do that. Really. I wouldn't make anybody a promise like that. And I'm not ready to vote for increases. I think there are people hurting that are unemployed or for all sorts of reasons their income may have gone down. I think it would be a very bad time to be increasing the annual charge, I think, for next year, for FY22, is my personal opinion.
Honestly, Jenny, even if you just raised it, $10 a householder, I don't even know how it's calculated, square foot or something, right? Even if you raise it just a little bit, like if CA stops being able to provide the services that we've moved here to depend on, they stop being able to maintain the trails and have the pools, which is why people wanted to live here, then, everybody suffers. So you might as well raise it a little bit so that we can keep on keeping on.
But you got to guarantee what, I think Paul's point, and I agree, is what are those core services that we should be.
Oh, definitely. I agree with getting back to, the basics.
Yeah, and actually the 2 you mentioned, although I'm not sure 23 pools could be supported. One of the original cuts was to go to 14 so that you could have the swim team, the Clippers, because you need 14 pools apparently, and not the Clippers, the summer teams. You need 14 pools to support the summer teams, swim teams. You can't do it with
that would really hurt our neighborhoods. People move here because they have a neighborhood pool down the street. And now if they have to get in a car and drive to it, it is not the same.
Yeah, well, okay, but if you're talking about 2 things, that's a very limited budget. That's different from all of the things that CA's been doing in the budgets. So it's how do you guarantee that those would be the things covered as part of it?
They're cutting out everything else.
Okay.
Jenny, I would suggest that you
I have
take
my
a look
hand
at the Mason-Dixon surveys that used to be done every other year. There were surveys of both members of CA and people who lived here who were not members on what their priorities were, why they were living here, and what they looked at as priorities actually for CA. I think those have been ignored mostly, in my opinion. Ask your staff for the old Mason-Dixon surveys that were done. And they did not vary much by survey. I mean, I only knew about them because we asked for them when we were doing the older adult plan. And that provided a whole lot of information on, where people were coming from in this town.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
All right, Lynn has a hand, and then I think Sandy had a hand up.
Yeah, I just have a couple of things to say. One is that I suggest I agree with what I think you were saying, Jenny, that trying to put forward a raise in the lien payment right now would not be met with enthusiasm by people living in Columbia, because right now there's a lot of disappointment with what we perceive that we're getting from CA. So I think that this is just in terms of what kind of backlash you get from people trying to raise the rates at the same time that the services are being more minimized. And my second point is that my guess is that very few people in Columbia, a very small percentage of the people in Columbia, of the residents, are aware of all of the programs that are supported by our CA lien. And so I think we think in terms of the sports clubs and the pools and the pathways and all of that. But there are a lot of other budget categories where things where expenditures are being made, and very large expenditures that I don't think most of us have any sort of real actual contact with. And so I think that to be really very, very transparent about what all of those are and what all of those costs are, including donations made and different organizations that are supported by CA that are not CA organizations, and just kind of have a listing of those and what are they. I think before we start talking about what are our priorities as a community, to kind of know just what exactly are we supporting with our CA liens. So that would be my second thing, or maybe that's my third thing there. And then the fourth is that I'm very uncomfortable, as I am actually with what's going on nationally, with relying on taking out these very large loans and then taking out other loans where a large percentage of the money in the new loan is to do the debt service on the old loan. And I'm not a financial expert, but it just doesn't seem to me to be a way to do business, that before you cut services, to be taking out loans to cover the expenses that you're not sure that people really want, that we really want to continue. So all of this taking out of loans, which is not something, and we really don't have an opportunity as lien payers to really weigh in on it and say, hey, no, CA, we don't want to take out any more loans. I mean, this isn't something, we can do it through you, but it's not, it's not sort of a referendum sort of a situation. And, I'm pretty conservative fiscally, and it seems to me like this is kind of a road to bankruptcy. So that's kind of my deal.
Yeah, actually, those are good points, and I'd like to get more information for you on that. But the 17, I think it's about 17.5 million that line of credit that CA's been functioning on, because the clubs closed and you didn't get that money, you didn't get the before and after school money, which should have carried us. So they had to really go more into that line of credit while they're waiting for the annual charge money to come in. That was a problem. I think we're just doing basic things like the stuff that's been opened already. You don't see donations, all of that's been cut, some program services, you're not going to see that coming back. We'll see what the staff recommends in terms of the budget, but that'll be in October, and it will be a public document. I think one of the problems is everything you want is in the CA budget. It's online, it's public information, but people don't. I think Rebecca read it, right, Rebecca? Rebecca wanted the budget, and I think Rebecca read the whole thing, but most people don't. They can get all this information there. And one email I had sent out about the budget, I had listed all the services we have, but you're right, the items, how much, and we've talked about it, like the downtown partnership, 200,000 that I refused to support, got in a lot of trouble for that. Yeah. But what do you want to cut? You don't want to, I mean, you guys, what do you want to cut? Nobody wants to cut the neighborhood centers. Nobody wants to eliminate tot lots. Nobody wants to cut the village boards. So that's, the village boards and the open space is a lot of money right there alone. So the loan is going towards that. We've got to do open space. We're cutting back a certain amount on what we're doing in open space. But if we don't keep that up and deal with a bridge falling down or, you know, crisis, that's where we're really, that is a main responsibility of CA, I think. So it's really complicated. It's not like we're wasting money right now. We're spending it on things like, you know, donations and other stuff. Those are the top things, the villages and open space. Open space first is extremely expensive. The villages next. And then paying the lien back, yeah. Because it expires, I think it's in a couple of months, and we've got to. It's not a secure loan, a line of credit. It's not secured. So the bank doesn't want that anymore. Bank of America, they said, that's it. We are not going to continue with something that's not secured. And I don't know if you can blame them for that.
Right. Sandy, did you have a hand up earlier?
I did. Lynn
Bill.
had a lot of the issues that I wanted to raise. I don't think it's that people in Columbia don't care. I think there's a lot of concern now. So maybe this is the prime time that we do whatever we can as CA to engage the residents. I don't think anyone has a clue of what 1% or 2% increase in the assessment, because most people don't know what is the assessment. So I think that if anything, if CA wants to know what the Columbians feel or want to see going forward, they have to do everything in their power to provide us the information to make our decisions on. Because people don't know who does what, 90% of the people. It's not like when we all moved here 50 years ago, when you knew where you were moving and you knew who did what. People don't have a clue. When I hear that, we get emails all day long about that. But another thing is that the villages, a lot of times you hear and you go to meetings, it's that we're sitting on this pot of $4 million, $6 million. There's 10 villages. Each village has very different expenses that are facility related, staff related. So cutting the villages, those are the services that the residents also pay for as part of their lien. And if we get cut more, it's the CA buildings that will be neglected. And I really only think right now it's the safety that needs to be concerned. But the covenant advisors, we provide covenant administration. Those are salaries. So I think that I just wish that when CA met, they wouldn't combine the money they give to 10 villages and realize each village is unique and has different expenses that others don't. But when you throw out, or not you, Jenny, but the CA board, and I hear it all the time because I listen to the meetings, that the villages are sitting on $6 million. Well, that's kind of a fallacy when you divide it by 10 and you see what the services are and the expenses that the villages incur for the residents who are paying the lien. So that's my speech. And I just think I don't think it's that people aren't interested or care. I just think that they don't take the time to know. So somehow CA has to do whatever outreach they can at this critical time to try to get input. That's it.
Okay.
Well,
Bill?
I want to thank you guys.
Jenny?
I just want to thank the board members that have been writing down the ideas that they've been giving and suggestions. So I want to just thank you.
Yes, Ginny and the board and everybody on the call, real quick, what we've been going through back and forth, CA and the boards over the last several months, budget, et cetera, points that the board has made in the past. It would be critical for CA to do a comprehensive study, consultant-led, although funding for that right now probably is very difficult, to figure out what should CA be legally. Should it be an incorporated city? Should it be an HOA? Should it sell its assets to the county and dissolve? If it stays in business, a complete comprehensive study of its assets, again, consultant-led. Do you need 23 pools? We have more pools per head count than anywhere else in the country, according to several articles I've read over the years. Then we get to the budget issues that have been going back and forth, et cetera. That's an extremely inefficient way to run a business. All the hassles would go back and forth on the management contract, budget money to the villages, stays at CA, et cetera. And then also internally within CA, the fact that the big revenue outside the lien fee are the clubs and before and after care. you're cross-subsidizing a lot of things internally within CA. The expenses and revenues are not aligned, and that really is shaky financially when one part of the business is subsidizing another. That's very, very difficult. So, and it's not to say negative things about your efforts. You're doing a great job with CA. And in CA, everybody cares, everybody's working hard, people out of work, et cetera. It's a brutal situation. But it tends to bring to light some structural inefficiencies, some issues that really needed to have been looked at a long time ago. And my concern is if we keep going down the road we are, I keep thinking Sears, Roebuck, Montgomery Ward's. Sears and Ward's gone out of business. The stuff they used to sell is now being sold by Amazon and Target and Walmart. So what they produced and sold didn't go out of business, but it was bad management at Sears and Ward's that put them out of business. My concern is we keep going down the same road with CA, we might be going out of business too. So thanks for listening. I'm off my soapbox.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Ginny? All right. I have some thoughts, but it's getting late. So Ginny, we'll talk during one of our conference calls.
Okay, okay.
All right, we're gonna send it over to Sandy for some updates.
Okay, so I did meet with Jeremy from CA, and we just sat in the lobby. We didn't look in the rooms, and he said that the HVAC equipment, and I know ours is probably the oldest of the villages because it was supposed to get replaced this year. You can't retrofit them to the type of fans that might be necessary because they just won't operate under those conditions. You know, when you try to increase the airflow or the filtration on an old machine, it can only do what it can do. He did suggest that we purchase this UV filtration fan that has to be mounted and plugged into a working electrical socket in the loft. That could range between $1,200 and $2,000 based on if there is electricity that is accessible for the fan. And then he suggested that we get standing UV air purifiers, and we would probably need 10 of them. We need 2 for each center, 5 for the different centers because there's 2 rooms in 2 of them, neighborhood centers. And then we would need 1 for every small room, including the kitchen in the building. So I did go ahead and put in, I ordered through Amazon the standing fans, and tomorrow I'm meeting the HVAC maintenance guy, not because to meet about the units, but he has to service our equipment, and he's been doing this for 4 years. So I just want to pick his brain again about the filtration in the building. That's along with all the other COVID concerns, my biggest concern is the purified air inside the buildings and inside the rooms in an old barn with no windows. So that still remains a concern, even though we were told what we need to purchase. I've purchased, and I sent Jonathan and Bill a spreadsheet. It'll be with all these fans, over $4,000 worth of COVID-related items. The fans being the biggest cost, probably about $2,500 or more when we're all said and done. But every kind of purifying machine, hand sanitizer, wall sanitizer, wipes, everything else, masks, gloves. I've told you all that before, but I did go through all of the receipts, and that is what we've spent. As far as the office or the rentals go, we have every rental has canceled or postponed through October 9th. And pretty much after that, I think we will only maybe have, I don't think we maybe have any through the end of December. We've given everyone the option until next week that we haven't heard from through the end of the year to let us know if they want to postpone or reschedule. We've lowered our numbers to 60 upstairs or 65 and 35 in the downstairs 2 rooms combined. Food service is limited to prepared food served to the individuals, 6 people at a table, all these things. I sent the church an entire new addendum to the contract with all of the COVID guidelines, and they said they're our Sunday church. that everything was reasonable, but they just couldn't foresee it working for their church right now. Village in Howard is only going to meet outside and have limited use of the office. So they're just paying us minimal just to be able to go inside the office a few times a month. The daycare at Talbot is back in operation. So yay, we get money for that. And Thunder Hill, that is a co-op nursery school. And I think they're just thinking long and hard about their decision. So I don't know what they'll do yet. CA did provide yesterday, we had sent them a liability addendum that the village managers looked at and sent to Sherry to see if that would cover us, including making that they were, we were not liable for any issues relating to renters or leases. And yesterday, Sherry Fenneroff sent us a more detailed disclaimer that everyone who signs a contract has to add, and it really limits our liability from, in the contract from anything and everything, and Sherry covered that all. They also sent us signs that actually I'm going to pick more up at CA that we place on every door to all of our buildings saying that they're assuming a risk by coming inside our buildings. So we have that will be in place. So those are the building related things. It's, it's not looking great money wise. And probably the only things I also sent Bill and Jonathan a complete list of monthly expenses, breaking some of the things we pay for like quarterly or half yearly into dividing it all by 12. And then I'm going to take the budget that we passed and revise it based on income projections, which will be much less, staff salaries, which will be much less, because that's what we can cut. And if we have to cut covenant advisor hours, then it's going to slow up the process, but we can only do what we can afford to pay for. So we are working remotely. We will continue to. It's just not safe in that building. We have no physical distancing in our offices. For instance, 3 of us needed to go in tomorrow. I need to meet the Fidelity HVAC people. Brigida had to get some files and some copying, and Amy wanted to go there and do the minutes because it's just an easier thing. And we have to just plan who will be there when. So we're meeting all the challenges, but it's not just as easy as, oh, here's a purifier and flick a switch. So, Jonathan and Bill know all that. And, anything that I do, I share with them immediately.
Andy, can you spread out throughout the whole
Well, we have our internet and our laptops and our desk stations. And so we could spread out, but getting internet into back rooms and other places where we don't have files is more difficult than sitting at home and doing our work. And also, I'm the only one that doesn't have kids at home. But, Teresa is doing her job with a 4-year-old. Amy's doing her job with 4 children who are all home for the summer. Carrie's with 3 children. So everyone is working right now. The safest environment for everyone is remotely, except when we have to be there. But I will say that Brigida is going to be scheduling appointments for tours because there are some smaller groups that might want to rent between now and the end of the year. So we will have by appointment only for certain hours, and we will be contacting everyone that's interested and putting it out there.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Question for Sandy. On some of the items you mentioned that you purchased, is there any way of getting any federal grant money for those?
We have been, that's the next thing, we have been approved to ask for an EIDL loan, and Bill and Jonathan are looking at all the figures I gave them. So that is there. It's 2.75% interest rate that you start paying on after a year from when you took out the loan, and then you pay it over 30 years. And that we have a month still to decide that. So waiting for some input on that. But you have to be careful. We don't want to be in a position like CA where we're, borrowing $75,000, putting everything we have up for collateral, and then, this situation takes a turn for even the worse. So I think those issues are weighing on us right now heavily because, weighing, do we shut down basically and provide minimal services, or do we take out a loan and incur debt for the future?
Good point.
Right, you guys? Jonathan and Bill, break your silence.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Looking at it, Jonathan and I have been looking back and forth at the numbers and been asking questions, and particularly about how it gets posted on our financial documents. Also, with those, what interaction is there with CA through our budget? Because a couple concerns I have, if when we would bring it to the board for discussion on the details of it, the OMCA would be signing the loan. CA would not be part of signing the loan. Therefore, to me personally, I would not want the money to be commingled with any money that CA would have the ability to touch. And then secondly, if we get a loan, what is it for? And my take would be basically to generate revenue. If we're going to take on a loan, paying it back over time, that's an expense. We need to have revenue to cover that repayment of the loan. How do we get that revenue? And then accounting wise, keep the revenue and the expense together and not cross subsidize other activities that we do with money from the loan. Okay, those are the two major concerns I have. And Sandy's been doing a great job on it, back and forth with CA and our accountant on how do we account for this? Where does it touch in the budget? What line item numbers, et cetera? And I think even today, there were still some emails back and forth on how that would be accounted. And then I'll turn the rest of the comments over to Jonathan, being the IRS man and loving the numbers, but that's my take on it as we're working through this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have the same concerns that Bill has when it comes to a loan. And I mean, especially any debt we're taking on, because our only collateral is our anticipated future revenue. And it's hard to anticipate what future revenue is, right? We don't have any physical collateral. So that's all we have. I mean, the response Sandy got from CA when it comes to loans, made me feel better about the OMCA money and the CA money not intermingling if you're thinking about things like the cash reserve cap, because a loan would go into a category where there's the offsetting obligation to that loan. You have to repay the loan. So it basically cancels itself out on the books. The question I also raised was, some of these programs also have a grant component. And CA seemed to be saying, well, a grant would just go into kind of an other revenue category. And I'm saying, wait a minute, if OMCA does the work and gets the grant, and that grant, is earmarked by law for certain activities, then that also can't get intermingled with our other revenue, because we could inadvertently then be violating the rules of the program if, the proceeds from that grant contribute to a cash overage, and we end up having to give some of that to CA as part of the cap payment. So I still think that's something we need to take a look at. I mean, we need to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position where we're over mortgaging away our future, and also we're not putting ourselves in a position where we're accepting funds that have to be used a certain way, but because of the accounting between CA and OMCA, they could get, I guess, a bit convoluted, for lack of a better term.
Yep, so that's that. I think we answered that. Any other questions? On a nice note, one of our residents has organized a sprinkler stroll in Stevens Forest, where they're asking those who are home that day to turn their sprinklers on the sidewalks, and the little kids are going to have a map and have a route where they can get a little outdoor fun in their own neighborhood. So far 11 have signed up, but we're doing a little more push for that. So that was nice. That's it.
Any questions for Sandy? All right, Lynn, did we have architecture matters tonight?
Yeah, I can just give a little bit of an update on where we are. I've got my notes right here. As you all know, that when we closed down in March, we had to cancel our March RAC meeting. This is the Resident Architecture Committee to look at external changes to homes, to properties. So we canceled that, but we did have a meeting on April 2nd. Then we kind of regrouped and we resumed again with Zoom meetings on June 18, and we've been having them on a weekly basis since then to try to make up for the backlog, because Carrie had been keeping records of everyone who had submitted questions and said, hey, I want to do something and what's going on. So she got back to everybody, got applications, and so we've been doing that since June 18. We've got another meeting this Thursday, the 16th, and then one the week after that, and possibly on the 30th as well, and see where we are in terms of catch up. But we're doing a good job where catch up is concerned. And I think that we talked last time at our last meeting about how we were doing with the letters of compliance, and that's been going pretty smoothly as well. So far complaints are being dealt with just on ad hoc basis. If it's something that seems really imperative to take care of right away, we get on it. Otherwise, we're kind of letting things like how tall the grass is and that sort of thing kind of wait, because the grass is just going to keep growing during the summer. So we're going to wait on that and see where we are in the fall. So that's it. Any questions from
Thanks.
anybody?
Any questions for Lynn?
It's,
All right.
oh, real quick. It's July now. Aren't we supposed to all have been approved, or did we pause that, or?
You mean as board members?
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody has received their letter, and as of right now, everybody is compliant.
Great.
All right. Well, that takes us to the bulletin board. So I'll start in the Lynn Square over here.
Nothing more.
Okay, and now let's see, I'm going to come across to Ginny. Ginny, you're muted. I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, no, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Paul?
No, I've said enough for one night.
All right. Rebecca?
Nope.
Okay. Larry? Nothing? Okay. Bill?
One question. This is for Ashley, so she might have to unmute. Okay. Ashley, did you have fun tonight?
It was extremely informative.
Great. Thank you.
And it's only your second day.
Yes.
All right. Sandy, did you have anything? No? Okay. Amy?
Nope.
All right. Well, I'll just wish everyone a good couple of weeks then so that we can end 1 minute before 9 o'clock. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
Good night.
Night, everybody. Night.